Israel's paid professional false prophets. We are now coming to the last two major incidents in the book of the Judges. And as we began the teaching on the Judges, we went to the very last verse in the entire book, which we read that because there was no king in Israel, everyone did that which was right in their own eyes. And that really typifies the entire book. But in order to understand what this means, that everyone did that which was right in their own eyes, and to understand this as a prophetic shadow picture, we know that the God of heaven was the king of Israel. He was just not personally present. And the king had already laid down the rules of the kingdom. The Torah is the rules of the kingdom. That's how we are to govern ourselves, govern our nations. This is what governs our relationship with the Almighty. The first commandment, which is basically to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and the other commandment, how to love your neighbor as yourself. Upon these two commandments, Yeshua said, hangs all of the Torah and the prophets. Now, that wasn't anything new that Yeshua said, because that is basically the overview of every commandment that we have. But when we have those who do not follow those instructions, then we see the debauchery. We see the national decline. We see what transpires when people will not govern themselves according to the commandments that are written in the Torah and were supposed to be the constitution, the ground line, the framework of the entire nation of Israel, and how the people were to relate to the Almighty, and how they were to relate to each other, and then how they were to relate to the rest of the world, because he called Israel to be a nation of priests and prophets, a nation, and a whole assembly, a nation of people that would be his prophets, his spokesmen to the entire world. In fact, it was David who said so beautifully that he divided the nations according to the number of the sons of Israel. Now, he divided the nations at the Tower of Babel, and it would be centuries before Israel and the offspring of Israel would be then called, then brought up out of Egypt, and then taken to Mount Sinai, where the instructions would be given. Because at the Tower of Babel, that's when the Almighty confused the languages. He disrupted Nimrod's one world government, his Novus Ordo Seclorum, if you please, his new world order in which he was worshipped as a god. It was a political and economic and a religious one world government system that the Almighty had to interrupt at that time, and he scattered the people all over the face of the earth, and they took pagan sun god worship that was already established in Babylon, the worship of Babylon, already established in Babylon, and then it was confused as these languages were divided and the people were sent to different parts of the world. Now, the Almighty had a plan in that he would choose a people to represent him accurately. And that is what Israel was offered at the base of Mount Sinai, even before the 10 first commandments were shouted down. We agreed that we would keep the commandments, whatever they were, and that we would be a nation of priests. We would be his prophets to the entire world. Well, coming out of Egypt, then we came into the land that was promised to us. We were told to get rid of all of the pagan sun god worship accoutrements. We are not to become entangled with the people that were then in the land. The sexual perversion of the Canaanites who brought in sodomy, and that's one of their big cities called Sodom. By the time you got a city called Sodom, you know that you have got a sexually perverse society that has grown up around that, with pedophilia, sex slavery, trafficking, sex trafficking, all those kind of things, killing people, using them as slaves. But ladies and gentlemen, this was common in the world. It was really only after the missionaries really were sent around the world that they had entire groups of people that had been enslaved and were kept as slaves in different societies. And I mean, for sacrifice, human sacrifice, all these kind of things were going on all over the world, and that was what was sent out of Babylon. The languages were confused, but the Almighty had a plan, and he chose his people. He said, get into this land, get rid of these pagans, get rid of the people that have brought in this perversion. I want you in this land. This is yours, and do not learn the way of the heathen. Do not learn how they worship and serve their gods. Do the same thing and say you're doing it to me. It's an abomination. Do not burn your children in the fire to these other gods. Do not make up gods of your own choosing. These are my commandments. This is how I want to be worshiped. And over, he said, don't learn the way of the heathen, but keep a feast to me 3 times a year. See, when the Almighty created us, he knew he was creating a party animal, but he said, this is how I want you to party. It's to be done decently. It's an honor and a glory to the creator of the heavens and the earth, and it is an honor for his people to participate in these things. Now, we have to look at now the book of Judges as we step back to even get a context for Judges. We went through the entire book of Deuteronomy and then Joshua to see the instructions just before we went over into the promised land. Joshua, who took us over, Yehoshua, which is Yehovah, is our Hoshea, which is salvation. When Joshua, or Yehoshua, which is Jesus' real name, when he took us over into the promised land, and then we started to do what we were asked to do in getting rid of the pagans in the land and subduing the land and being obedient to the commandments. But then we step over into the book of the Judges, the very next incident that is going on in the book of Judges, and then we see Israel as they begin to compromise. And the real big question that everyone has to ask when we read the book of Judges, where are the Levites? Where are those that are supposed to be the leaders, the teachers, the prophets, the judges in Israel? Where are these people that the Almighty chose as an entire group of people that their life is to serve Israel? Where are they? What are they doing? Well, now we are going to see in the last 2 incidents what is going on with the Levites. And this is what I am asserting to you, ladies and gentlemen. Why this is a prophetic shadow picture is because Yeshua, the king, was here. He showed us how the Torah was to be lived. He lived the Torah. He fulfilled in every detail the spring feast of the Lord and all these prophetic shadow pictures embedded in the spring feast of the Lord. He lived these things out and showed us how to live these things out. And he said to follow me, follow me. And then if that's not clear enough, then Paul, Shaul, then reiterates, he says, follow me as I follow the Messiah. But yet, most people aren't following anything Yeshua said to do. They made up their own religious systems, certainly, and because the king is not here personally present, everyone is doing whatever they want to do. And the Levites today, those who are supposed to be the ministers and teachers, are pulling the same stuff that we see in the prophetic shadow picture of the book of the Judges. I'm often asked, when will there be unity in the body of believers? And I say, there won't be. Not until the king is present again. Everyone's going to continue doing everything they want to do because judgment immediately does not fall. This is an age in which we see that judgment is not coming upon people immediately when they do wrong, or even every 40 years, as we see in the book of the Judges, which is basically a generation. It's giving us these 40 years or these generations to show us how quickly, after deliverance comes and repentance comes, how quickly the next generation takes it back down because they do not understand yet. They are going to have to learn the hard way. And every generation is the same. Every generation has to learn the hard way. Now, they can listen, they can learn, but still, they're going to have to learn it the hard way. They're going to end up voting for the wrong people because they promise hope or they promise change, and it's like, or they plan to fundamentally change America. Well, anyone comes along in the older generation says that, most of us have got enough sense to say to someone who's never held an honest job and, works as a lawyer for a crooked organization out of Chicago, which is just full of corruption, no thank you. I don't want change. No thank you. I don't want this nation to be fundamentally changed because the fundamentals, the foundation are God-given rights, not socialism. Well, every generation is going to have to learn. And when the king comes back, he will set things straight. We are in Judges chapter 17, and we are going to find out where the Levites are and what they are doing. Judges 17, there was a man of Mount Ephraim whose name was Micah. And he said to his mother, the 1,100 shekels of silver that were taken from thee, it's not really shekels, it's pieces of silver, 1,100 pieces of silver that were taken from thee, about which you spoke a curse, and you also spoke that curse in my ears. Look, the silver is with me. See, people took a curse seriously. And we see this in the book of Acts when Jotham, who was the youngest son of Gideon, spoke a curse, that curse came to pass, that his half-brother ended up killing most of the people that he was supposed to be serving as their king, and then the people killed him because of the curse that was spoken. And so when Micah's mother spoke this curse about someone who took 1,100 pieces of silver, which is a substantial piece of money, and so he took this money from his mother, and she spoke that curse, and he said, look, behold, the silver is with me. I have it. And then his mother said, blessed be thou of Yehovah, my son. And when he had restored the 1,100 pieces of silver to his mother said, I had already completely dedicated the silver to Yehovah from my hand for my son, to you, to make a graven image and a molten image. Now therefore I will give it back to you. Now this woman is using the name of Yehovah, but what is she saying she's going to do with the silver? She wants to have a graven image and a molten image made of it. Well, this is in direct violation of the commandment, the very second commandment, when in Exodus it says, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is heaven above, or is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, Yehovah, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of those who disobey me. The word hate is actually used in the King James Version, but in the entire context, you see, those that hate him are those who refuse to follow his commandments. That's what it means to hate God, is to not obey him. He's the creator of the heavens and the earth. He owns it all. We owe him strict obedience. We get to live on this planet and in this universe for a short amount of time. He has given that to every one of us. What a wonderful gift. And all he asks is for us to obey him, love him, and then love our neighbor as ourselves. Do not destroy his image. Do not make another image. Do not make up something you think represents him. No. He is what he is. I am what I am. I will be what I will be. Yehovah is my name forever, but he said, this is my nature. This is what I am. He declares himself by way of his word. And he says, if you love me, keep my commandments. If you love me, keep my commandments about loving your neighbor and taking care of your neighbor and not destroying the planet. Well, they are speaking. She is speaking this in the name of Yehovah, and what's actually happening? What's taking place here? Making a graven image, breaking the commandments of the Almighty. And so it goes on to say, so he restored the money to his mother. He gave all the money back to his mother, and then his mother took 200 pieces of the silver and gave them to the founder. who made a graven image and a molten image. And they were then put in the house of Micah. And Micah had a house of gods. A house of gods. You see, these are just his recent collections here. This is his recent collection. It says he made a house of God and he made an ephod. An ephod is part of the priest's garments and is used in service in the temple, or during this period of time, of course, it would be used in service in the tabernacle that was that had been set up. And he made an ephod and a teraphim. A teraphim. This is like a seraphim, but it's a teraphim. Terra or ground, it's a god of the earth. And he consecrated one of his sons who became his priest. And so now they're going to develop their entire shtick of how their gods are going to be worshiped, and yet they're using the name of the one true God. At least his mother is. But now he's got a house of gods, and so he consecrates one of his sons, he's going to be his priest. And then it tells us in verse 6, in those days there was no king in Israel. How many times is this going to be repeated? In those days there was no king in Israel, but every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, that is why we had to get the context of the Torah and the commandments so that we understand what people are doing in the book of Judges and how it relates today. Because basically that's the same thing going on. The king from heaven who came down and laid down the rules of the kingdom, whereby you will either be admitted into the eternal kingdom or denied access thereto. And just as Yeshua closed the entire what's called the Sermon on the Mount, he said, not those who call me Lord will enter the kingdom. No, those who do the will of my Father. And then he went on to say that there will be many in those days who say, we prophesied in your name. We have cast out demons. We've done wonderful works. And he's going to say, get out of my face. I never knew you, you worker of anomia. Anomia, A without, nomia, Torah, the instructions. You do the will of the Father. It's all right here. The Torah is the will of the Father. Yeshua lived out the will of the Father. He said, those who don't, they say they love me, but that doesn't matter. You can say whatever you want. This man and his mother said, blessed be you of Yahovah. Here, I'm going to give you this. Now go out and make some more gods. This is exactly what's going on today. Now, there was a young man out of Bethlehem, Judah, the house of bread in Judea, and he was of the family of Judah, but he was a Levite. And he sojourned there in Bethlehem, Judah, and then the man departed out of the city from Bethlehem, Judah, to sojourn where he could find a place. Now, to understand this, we're going to go right back to Deuteronomy for just a moment here. Deuteronomy chapter 18. This is a chapter that you should almost have memorized because we are dealing with, one, the service of the Levites and how they're to be compensated. Number two, about doing nothing with the demonic spirits of fortune-telling, soothsaying. And then the last thing is the prophecy concerning the prophet that Moses prophesied, that Moses promised would come, and the people must shema. They must hear and obey him. And that's what Yeshua did when he came the first time. He did not come as the Messiah to be received and live as a Messiah and live happily ever after. That's nonsense. He came the first time as the prophet. And these are the words that are used in the Gospels over and over and over. This prophet, that prophet, the prophet. He is the prophet of whom Moses spoke, that we must shema, we must hear and obey. And if we don't, as it says in Deuteronomy, it will be diligently sought out, and we will be judged according to our compliance or non-compliance to the words of that prophet. A very important chapter, but now I'm going to read the very beginning of this. The priest, the Levites, and all the tribe of Levi shall have no part nor inheritance with Israel. They shall eat the offerings of Yahovah made by fire. So now it starts out by all of the tribes of Israel, all the different families have different parcels of land. Levi does not have that. He is not going to have land. The job of the Levite is to teach, is to be the ministers and the doctors and the judges in Israel. That's what Levi, that is his course in life. And so he is going to be able to eat of the offerings that the rest of the nation make, and they get to have that because that is his inheritance. Therefore, shall they have no inheritance among their brethren. Yahovah is their inheritance, as he has said to them. Now, when it says Yahovah is their inheritance, that means they have a connection with him that others do not have. Or they're supposed to have this connection. Because they give up some of the things in this life, they can't own land, they can't own all this property. And we see that in the book of Acts, that there was a Levite named Yossi, who was the son of a prophet, Barnabas, he became known as the son of the prophet, who had a parcel of land. He was from Cyprus, had a parcel of land. He sold it and laid it at the apostles' feet. Why did he sell it and lay it at their feet? Because it was illegal. He was a Levite. He's not supposed to have that land to begin with. But in place of that, then there is a special relationship. Yahovah is their inheritance, just as he said to them. And this shall be the priest's due from the people. From them that offer sacrifice, whether it's an ox or sheep, they shall give it unto the priest, and they shall have the shoulder, and the two cheeks, and the maw. The first fruit also of all of the corn, as it says in King James, but it's really all the grain, all the crops. The first fruits of the crops, and of your wine, and of your oil, the first of the fleece of your sheep. That is what you shall give him. And now here's an instruction to Israel. You take care of him. The first fruits belong to him. Make sure that before you're even taken care of, make sure the Levites are taken care of, because they minister to you. And that's why the first fruits is in the spring of the year, because before you have the abundance of your harvest, you take the first fruits and you give it to the Levites. That is your only insurance that you're going to have a crop the rest of the year, or that it's not going to rain on your crop, or the locusts aren't going to come and eat it up at the last minute because you have been obedient to do what the Almighty said. For, it says in verse 5, for Yahovah, thy Elohim, hath chosen him out of all the tribes to stand and minister in the name of Yahovah. He and his sons forever. That's their job. And if a Levite comes from any of the gates out of Israel where he sojourned, and this particular Levite here, his name is Yochanan, okay, we're going to find that out later, but he was sojourning in Beit Lechem. He wasn't in Jerusalem, he was in Beit Lechem. That is where he was, that's where he was supposed to be teaching, and that's where he was sojourning. And so if he comes out of any of the gates where he sojourned, and he comes up with all of his desire of his heart and mind to come to the place where Yahovah shall choose to put his name, and at this time it is not Bethel. I was just there a short time ago. Shiloh. And this is where the Ark of the Covenant is. This is where the tabernacle is at this point. That's where he chooses to put his name. And if he decides that he wants to go up and go to the feast, not go to the feast, but go and do the things of the service of the temple, then this is what it says. Then he shall minister in the name of Yahovah his Elohim, just as all of his other brothers, the Levites, do, which stand before Yahovah. They shall have the like portion to eat, besides that which cometh of the sale of his patrimony. Now this is important, people, because when a Levite goes out and is in Bethlehem and is taking care of things there, then his patrimony, the patron of the arts, this is where the whole concept comes from, where those who are wealthy, those who are being ministered to by these Levites will take care of them. And the patron of the arts, this is where You have the Medici family in Italy who is extremely wealthy, just millions of dollars, and they are the ones that pay for Michelangelo to do his work and for the different artists to do their work. Because when an artist is starting out, they may not be able to sell everything that they've got, but if someone will stand with them, will be a father to them, so to speak, the patron of the arts, because they will stand with them, they can then do their artwork. And centuries later, we've got some of the most incredible masterpieces that have ever been painted on the earth, and they're still with us today because of these patrons of the arts. Now we're talking about that a Levite who is being taken care of in his own community. And we also know that once every 3 years, instead of taking your tithe up to Jerusalem, you take care of the Levites, the poor and the widows, and in your own community, and also the children who have no parents. The orphans are also being taken care of. That is where your tithe is to go every 3rd year, to take care of the Levites, the poor, widows, and orphans in your own community. And so now it's saying, okay, this Levite is being taken care of here, but if he goes up to the place, Jerusalem, or up to Shiloh to serve Yehovah there, he is still qualified and can eat of the offerings that is brought by all of Israel. So this is what it is talking about here. Now, it says that this Levite who leaves Bethlehem, Judah, he comes to Mount Ephraim, to the house of Micah. And as he journeyed, he finally gets to Mount Ephraim, and Micah says to him, "Where do you come from?" And he said, "I'm a Levite from Bethlehem, Judah. And I go to sojourn where I might find a place to sojourn, someplace where I'm needed." And Micah said to him, "Dwell with me, and be to me a father and a priest. And I will give you 10 pieces of silver by the year, and a full suit of apparel and all of your food. This is room and board, and I'm going to pay you a good sum." Now, obviously, this man was quite wealthy to offer this. So the Levite went in. And the Levite was content to dwell with the man. And the young man was to him as one of his sons. And Micah consecrated the Levite, consecrated him just to be his priest, and the young man became his priest and was in the house of Micah. Then Micah said, "Now I know that Yehovah will do me good, seeing that I have a Levite to my priest." Well, we're going to see exactly what transpires in this, ladies and gentlemen, because this Levite, who now becomes his priest, is going to serve him because he's getting paid. He's got not only room and board, he's got a healthy sum of silver that comes from him every year, and these idols. And this graven image that was very expensive, and the molten image very expensive, they are going to stay there because this Levite is going to sell out for clothes, for a little money, and a place to stay. And that is just about what we have going on in America, in the religious system here, and really around the world today. Paid professional false prophets who will serve any god, who will serve the multiple gods, anything that it takes in order to take care of their own body and soul, instead of taking a stand and leading people in the path of righteousness. We're going to take a break for just a minute, because you need to make a decision. The decision is, are you going to take care of the Levites that are providing these programs to you? On our staff now, well over 30 people right here in this studio and in serving the ministry right here, not even speaking of in the other countries, in South America, over in the Netherlands, in Costa Rica. We have staff all over the world, and our main thing is giving away material free to the world, producing television programs and other things to help bring you up and enlighten you in the scriptures so that you can live according to the standard of the scripture. If we have been a provision to you, then it is simply because someone else stood with us. that you are benefiting from the patrimony of others whose lives were changed, and now we are able to reach you because they are helping us. Now this is your opportunity. This is where you take a stand. This is where you make sure that the first fruits go to where the ministry is happening, that you're being fed by real Levites, those who are really taking a stand and teaching the truth and not just selling out for a shirt, a gold watch, a house, food, and a little bit of silver on the side. This is your opportunity. Stand with us. Thank you. We'll be back in a minute. Now we are going to find out if Yahovah will now bless him because he has a Levite as his priest. Judges chapter 18, verse 1. In those days there was no king in Israel. Well, again, it has to be stated over and over and over so you get the idea. When the king is not personally present, people do whatever they want. And that goes on to say, in those days the tribe of Dan sought an inheritance to dwell in because up to that day, all the inheritance had not fallen to them among all the tribes of Israel. They were still looking for more land to settle because they had not driven out the inhabitants of the land. They had an excuse, is that these people, they had iron chariots and we couldn't do it. Well, it turns out that the iron chariots are not even the issue with the Almighty. It's their faith. It's their believing in the promises of the Almighty. And so Dan didn't get to receive all their land. And so now they're out looking for it. So the children of Dan sent of their family 5 men from their coast. They were all men of valor. These are all warriors. And they sent them from Zorah, even to Eshtaol to spy out the land, to search it. And they said to them, go search out the land. And when they came to Mount Ephraim, because they're looking for a place, they came to the house of Micah, and they lodged there. And when they were there in the house of Micah, they knew the voice of the young man, the Levite. They knew it. And so they went to him and said, who brought you here? Now, when he says, who brought you here, it's like, okay, you're here because, this is what a Levite is supposed to do, and you're going to be taken care of. And then they ask you, who brought you here? One. And we know that he was just wandering through the area looking for a place. No one really brought him there. He was looking for his opportunity. And then the second question, what do you make in this place? How much money? What kind of income do you have? And then he says, and what do you have here? And it says in the King James, he said, thus and thus Micah dealeth with me, and he has hired me, and I am his priest. So thus and thus, that tells us that this is not just a short conversation. He went on and told all about the background and why he came up here, and then why would they know him? Bethlehem, Judah, because Dan was down in that area, and they were familiar with the man. They were familiar. They heard his voice, and they turned into where he was. And so there's a lot of catching up to do. And so thus and thus, that's shorthand in the Bible for this was a rather long conversation, getting reacquainted with each other. And then he finally says that Micah's one, he hired me, and I'm his priest. And they said to him then, okay, well, ask counsel of God, and we would like to know whether our way is going to be prosperous or not. And so now this Levite, now he's going to prophesy to them, okay? The priest said, go in peace before Yahweh, your way is prepared. Go in peace, your way is prepared. Well, what has he got to lose? He's got a 50% chance of being right. Go your way and things are going to work out well, or go your way and they end up dead and who's going to know about it anyway? So of course he's going to give them a soothing saying about their future fortune. And so without any word from the Almighty, we're going to find out that he's not getting any word from the Almighty. All right? This guy is sold out. He is sold out, and instead of teaching the truth and standing for the truth, he is no prophet. He is a false prophet. He's a paid professional false prophet, and what he's going to do is just like any other time that you go to these meetings where the prophet is and everyone stands in line, and that you put your money in the basket to release the anointing before you get up there, or you get in the $1,000 prophecy line, or you go in the $500 prophecy line, or you go into the $25 prophecy line. All this kind of shenanigans really goes on in the Christian church today. I'm not saying anything that a lot of you don't know about. And then when you go up there to get your prophecy, you're going to hear nothing but soothing sayings about your future fortunes. Never are you going to hear anyone in the $1,000 line saying, thus saith Yahovah, you are in sin. You never hear it. It's always future fortunes and soothing sayings. And this is exactly what these men got. A soothing saying. What else are you going to prophesy to your friends who found you up north? Then the 5 men departed and came to Laish, and they saw that the people they dwelt there and they had no cares. The area is absolutely beautiful. It's right at the base of Mount Hermon. It is a forest there. There are so many streams coming out of this. These people were living in almost the Garden of Eden. And they lived quietly. They were secure, and there was no magistrate in the land that might put them to shame in anything. They didn't pay any taxes. It's like, man, have we hit it rich? This is what we've been looking for our whole lives. And they were a long ways away from the Zidonians, and they didn't have any, it says business, didn't have any business with any man. And it's really, there was no agreement with anyone for their protection and vice versa. They were living by themselves in nirvana. And it says that they went back to their brethren and they said, come on, let's go. We can go up against them. We've seen the land. It is very good. Let me tell you about these streams and everything else. Why are you still here? That's what it says. Why are you still here? I just told you this. Get up. Don't be slothful. Get in there and possess this. We have got to take this. If anyone else discovers what is up there, we're going to lose out on this. So pack your trash, leave the heavy stuff behind, because we are going to paradise. It's huge. This land is huge. The people live without a single care. And now we go up to this place, and it's a place where we will not want anything that is in the earth. Literally what it says. Now, verse 11, and there went out from thence a family of the Danites out of Zoar and out of Eschatal, 600 men, the entire family of Danites, the entire tribe, 600 men who were warriors. And they went up, pitched in Kiryat Yearim in Judah, and that's why they call it Mahane Dan right to this day. And so they're in Judah. They pitched there first in Mahane Dan, or the camp of Dan, and it's called Kiryat Yearim, and even to this day in the land of Israel. And they went from there, and they went to Mount Ephraim, and they stopped by the house of Micah. And then the 5 men that went up there to spy out the country to begin with, who knew the priest who was there, the Levite, they said to their brethren, we know that there is, in one of these houses, there's an ephod, there's a teraphim, there's a graven image, and a molten image. This man is absolutely loaded. He's got a house of gods, and this is extremely valuable. There's no one around protecting. We got 600 men. Let me tell you what I think we ought to do. So they came to the house, and the Levite was there in the house of Micah. They saluted him. They bid him greetings from the tribe of Dan. And the 600 men, all with their weapons of war, completely loaded to the gills, ready to go to battle, because that's where they're going. They're heading up, and they're going to battle against the people up there at the foot of Mount Hermon. And so they all stood outside of the gate. But the 5 men that originally went up to spy in the land, they came into the house, and they took the graven image, they took the ephod, they took the teraphim, they took the molten image, and they took them all out. They stole them. And then the priest came out and stood at the gate where the 600 men were and saw them carrying out all of this booty out of Micah's house. And when they went in there and they fetched all the images, they said to the priest, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? They gave him a choice. He said, keep your mouth shut. But literally, put your hand to your mouth. Keep your mouth shut. Don't say a thing, and go with us. Be a priest for us. You consider, you can be a priest for this man. We just took all his loot. We took all of his idolatry, and we're taking it with us. And you can be the priest to this one man at this one house, or you can be a priest to the entire tribe of Dan. And where we are going is a land, I tell you, flowing with milk and honey. It is one of the most beautiful places in all of the promised land. And so when the priest heard what he was being offered, it was like, okay, I'm going to get a pay raise. I'm going to live in paradise. You're taking all this stuff anyway. And if I hang around here and my master finds out that you've run off with everything, I'm probably not going to have a job anyway. So he was glad. So he took the ephod and the teraphim and the graven image and went in the midst of the people. So he then got it all and went into the middle of the 600 armed soldiers. So now they are his protection. He is their priest. They're going to protect him. Even though what he's doing is wrong, even though what he's doing is stealing, they're going to protect their pastor, their priest, who is going to do things their way, and they're going to run off with the booty. And so they turned and departed. They put the little ones and the cattle and the carriage in front of them. And when they were gone quite a long ways from the house of Micah, the men that were in the houses near to Micah's house, they all gathered together, and then they overtook the children of Dan You know, because again, they're going slowly. They've got their entire family. Now you've got the people from the community of Micah, and they get their battle instruments, and they're going to go out there, and it's not going to take them long to catch up. You know, in front. That's why it says in front, they had the carts and the wagons, and so you've got the 600 soldiers surrounding their priest in the middle, and they're moving rather slowly, and so they overtook the children of Dan. And they cried to the children of Dan, and they cried out, and they were yelling at them. And so they turned, and Micah was with them. And they said to Micah, "What aileth thee? What's wrong with you? What, are you out of your mind that you come against such a great company?" And he said, "What ails me? You've taken away my gods, which I made. You took away my priest. And you've taken away everything. And what do I have? And how is it?" You say, "Well, what ails me? What's wrong with me? Are you out of your mind?" And the children of Dan said, "Shut up. Shut up. You're starting to make us a little mad. We're starting to get a little angry with your insolence, okay? We did what we did. Shut your mouth and turn around, or we're going to kill you and everyone in your house. Everyone in your community, you're all dead if you don't shut up." So the children of Dan turned around and just kept on going. And when Micah saw that they were too strong, he turned around and went back to his house. And they took the things which Micah had made, and the priest which he had, and came to Laish, to those people that were secure and lived quietly. They smote them with the edge of the sword. They burnt the city, trashed it, destroyed it with fire, and there was no one to deliver them, because it was so far from Zidon, and they really didn't have any alliance with any man anywhere around there. And it gives a little bit more details in the valley that's by Beit Rehob, but you know, right there. See, when it speaks of the dews of Hermon, the dews of Hermon, the blessings of the dews of Hermon, it's not really dew that comes up from the ground. It's over 30 feet of snow that falls on the top of that mountain in the wintertime. And then it filters down through that rock, and then within 5 to 30 years later, it boils up out of the ground, and that is right there at the city of Dan. You just put your head down the water and drink. It's ice cold from the snow and the ice, and this is where they built the city of Dan. And they named it after Dan, their father, who was born to Israel. And so even though the name of what was Laish at first, and that's important because this is where Abraham went to Laish when he was tracking those who had taken Lot from him. And so this is another thing that the scripture does for us. It lets us know the former names and the latter names so that we can tie all the scripture together. And it says, "And the children of Dan set up the graven image, and Yochanan, the son of Gershom, the son of Manasseh, that he and his sons were the priests of the tribe of Dan until the days of the captivity of the land." So Yochanan, his children, and his children, and his children, they continued to be the priest of the tribe of Dan until the day of the captivity of the land. And they set them up, Micah's graven image, which he had made, and it was there. And that's where they served these pagan gods all the time that the house of God was in Shiloh. We're going to find out that later on, Dan is going to be in a very, very difficult situation later on, because at Dan, the doors are open. And where Jeroboam, when he takes the northern kingdom and divides themselves from Judah, he puts a golden calf at Bethel, at the house of Elohim, and at Dan. Why at Dan? Because the priests up there were already completely immersed in pagan sun worship, and they were ripe for the rest of the delusion that's going to finally send Israel into captivity. Now, I want you to go with me Second Kings. Second Kings, because we are going to find out about these priests who were the priests until the day of the captivity of the land. And in 2 Kings chapter 17, in the 12th year of Ahaz, the king of Judah, began Hoshea the son of Elah to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years. Now, this is what we see all through the book of the Kings. It tells us who the king was in Judah and how many years they've been reigning in relationship to who the king was and when they began reigning in Israel. And they go back and forth on this, vice versa, so that you can track and understand the order of events and the chronology and to be able to figure out the years. It's absolutely brilliant. And, you know, those who want to, the completely foolish and ignorant who think, oh, the Bible is all full of errors and it was just written by men. We have histories that are so accurate in here that anyone who reads it, most of the time, it's just way over their head. They don't even know enough about history and about scriptures in order to read something and to derive information from it. But this is why we read this, because of the chronology, the order of events, and the way they happen here. Now, I'm going to continue reading. And he, Hoshea, did that which was evil in the sight of Yahovah. And against him, verse 3, came up Shalmaneser, the king of Assyria. And Hoshea became his servant and gave him presents. Well, this wasn't really giving him presents. This is what the taxation that he had to pay him every year, because Shalmaneser was the conqueror of the land. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea. He found conspiracy. He conspired together because he had sent messengers to the king of Egypt and to get in alliance with them, and then refused to pay the tax, as he had done every year before then. And so the king of Assyria came and arrested him and bound him in prison. Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went up to Samaria, besieged it for 3 years. He's already taken the king. Now he's going to take the capital of Israel, the northern kingdom. Remember, down in Jerusalem, we have Ahaz, who is the king down there. Up here, we have Hoshea, who's in prison now. And it's now in the 9th year of King Hoshea that the king of Assyria finally took Samaria after besieging it for 3 years. And he carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and Habor and by the river of Gozan. And so what he did, and then took them all the way over into the cities of the Medes. Now the people that were in that part of the world, he took them out of those captured cities and he moved them all over into the conquered land of Israel. The Israelites were all taken away and put over in Iran, Iraq, Syria, and way out there. And you've got millions of people that are displaced at this point and all taken out of the land of Israel. And why was it done? It says in verse 7, because the children of Israel had sinned against Yahovah, that brought them up out of the land of Egypt and out from under the hand of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And they feared other gods. They respected, they worshiped, they obeyed, they learned the way of the heathen gods, and they did the same thing and say they were doing it for him, like Micah's mother. Oh, Yahovah bless you, my son. Here, take 200 pieces of this silver and we're going to make you some more gods. And then you're going to hire a priest and then he's going to be your priest over your house of gods. And this is exactly why they're being carried out of the land. And it says that false priest and the family of false priests were there until they were taken out of the land. Here is the incident where Shalmaneser comes in and takes them out of the land. And it says, and they walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom Yahovah had cast out before the children of Israel, and the kings of Israel, which they had made. And the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right against Yahovah. Secretly. They said, oh, we love the Lord. But really, what was going on behind closed doors, they had no respect and no obedience to the true God. It says that they built themselves high places in all their cities. These are obelisks, phallic symbols, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced city. And they set themselves up images and groves on every high hill and under every green tree. That's where they did their sacrifices. They burnt incense at all the high places, just as the heathen whom Yehovah carried away before them. They wrought wicked things to provoke Yehovah to anger. Now, we are in the closing section right here of 2 Kings, okay? They served idols. The same idols that Yehovah said to them, you shall not do this thing to them, and yet they did it. So Yehovah testified against Israel, and he testified against Judah by all of the prophets, by all the seers. He sent to them and said, turn from your evil ways and keep my commandments and keep my statutes according to all the Torah which I commanded your fathers, which I sent you by my servants and the prophets. Notwithstanding, they refused to hear. They refused to listen to them. They hardened their necks like the necks of their fathers. They did not believe in Yehovah their Elohim. They rejected his statutes, his covenants, which he made with their fathers, and his testimonies, which he testified against them. They followed vanity and became vain, and went after the heathen that were round about them, concerning whom the Lord had charged them, that you do not do what they do. You shall not be like them. I'm going to close in prayer. And we'll pick this up next week. Yehovah, keep us from the accursed thing. Yehovah, teach us according to your commandments, and may we do them with our whole heart, our whole mind, and our whole strength. Yehovah, teach us to walk as Yeshua walked, in obedience to your commandments. May your grace empower us to do which is impossible in our flesh. May the Messiah in us fulfill all of your will, and may we walk in your righteousness all the days of our life. Amen. Amen. Shabbat shalom to our fans. Lehitrot. See you soon.